You're listening to the Black Eagles podcast with Sinan Schwarting and Kaan Bayazit.
Ahmet Dursun Sergen aldı. Sergen Bülent yan yana. Sergen Bülent. Sergen. Yanında Tümer var. Tümer'e doğru atışını kaybetti. Tümer topu aldı. Sergen aldı. Gol! Gol! Gol! Sergen attı. Sergen attı. Şampiyonluk geldi. Sergen attı. Şampiyonluk geldi.
İbrahim'in pası. Roma. Şimdi Ahmet. İkinci gole gidiyor Beşiktaş. Ahmet.
No, it's good. No, I mean, I wrote it, but I just rolled. All right, welcome back, everyone. Episode 35 of the Black Eagles podcast. A momentous occasion as we're coming fresh off a European match. I am your host, Sinan Schwarting, live from New York City, and as always, or well, I should say as usual, my co-host, Kaan Bayazit, is back. Everyone, how's it going, Kaan?
I'm okay. Not too bad, not too shabby.
Not letting it get you
Not too
down.
happy with the results tonight, but I don't know. It's not a big deal yet. Hopefully, it won't end up being a big deal.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, but yeah, let's dive right into it.
Yeah. So like I said, before we touch on any analysis, yeah, let's get right into it, and maybe even before that, just to alleviate people's stress, you know, to keep everyone in that sort of zen state that it sounds like Kaan's in. It should be noted that Genk, who most have assumed thus far among our illustrious guests and ourselves, and I think the Twitterverse, if you will, as well, have assumed that Genk and Beşiktaş would be the teams competing for that first spot. So it should be noted that Genk lost today 3-1 against Sarpsborg, a side who we've already beaten. So that's something that can kind of like chill us all out, and so we're all level on 3 points here. We didn't fall behind. In fact, in a sense, we're kind of still doing all right. So anyway, on that note, Kaan, you know, well, everyone stretch, breathe. Talk us through it, Kaan. Tell us about the match.
Okay, so Shinogina did some rotating ahead of the game. Some changes. Jan Erkin back in the team after his suspension. He started off with a midfield consisting from Necip Uysal, Gary Medel, and Adem Ljajic, and then he started up top with Gökhan Töre with his second start of the season. I believe he also started against Sarpsborg, and then Jermaine Lens on the other wing, and Wagner Love. So some changes there, some regulars being rested. The match at the Swedbank Stadium started at 9 o'clock in the evening, one of the late matches. And the first half was not much of note in terms of goals, but there were some opportunities. Beşiktaş had, I think, 2 or 3 good opportunities to score, but Johan Dalin, the former Gençler Birliği goalkeeper, prevented that. Wagner Love probably the closest to opening the scoreline, but 0-0 at halftime. And then I think we all kind of had the feeling of, well, you know, we're controlling this, we're in control, they're not really dangerous, they'll be fine. And that was really the way the match was going until when is it? Yeah, the 53rd minute. So 7, 8 minutes into the second half, suddenly we're behind, we're trailing. It was a very weird goal to concede a cross from the left-hand side from Windheim, deflected by Caner Erkin, and it waves into the goal at the near post over Loris Karius. Initially, I thought it was just a poor cross that had gone wayward and went in, but it was actually a deflection of Caner, and it surprised Karius at his near post. So a lot of the Twitter, you know, official Twitter accounts like SportX and stuff like that saying, well, you know, huge mistake by Karius, but I don't know if you can say that when it's a deflection.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it. So then Beşiktaş, of course, have to take the match more in hand. There was a good opportunity for Wagner Love that he was unable to convert. Once again, Johan Dahlin. Beşiktaş seemed to have pulled things level in the 70th minute through Pepe, but unfortunately the goal was adjudged offside. It was a correct decision. It seems like. And then a couple of minutes later, 4 minutes later, in the 76th minute, so 6 minutes later, I guess, there was a penalty for Malmö after Janar Erkin pulled down one of the Swedish players in the box. The referee decided it was a penalty. I'm not 100% sure if it was enough, really, if he really pulled him. I'm not sure, but awarded the penalty. Marcus Rosenberg, their experienced 35-year-old striker, stepped up and converted coolly from the penalty spot, and somehow, without creating a single chance, Malmö 2-0 up after 76 minutes, and that was just too much of a tall order for Beşiktaş to overcome. Still, at that point, Ricardo Quaresma was also coming on in the 82nd minute. Had already came on. Oğuzhan was the final sub, I think. Quaresma, Babel had come on. Oğuzhan was the final sub to come on, but it was all too late. And the final scoreline reads Malmö 2, Beşiktaş 0. And I have to say, it's a very weird scoreline given how the match went.
I'll back you up. I'll follow that up with a slightly more in-depth statistical thing. I kind of liked how that worked in the last match. And I think it's actually apt today because it tells a certain story. Statistically, we held... Actually, all right, I'll be more journalistic about it. Beşiktaş held 56% of the ball compared to Malmö's 44%. Had 8 shots on goal versus their 5. 4 on target to their 2. We completed 507 passes to their 406, and actually, while maintaining a fairly good pass accuracy at about 83%, they were at 75%. So they were not super efficient in passing the ball. Fouls were sort of even back and forth. I think the ref, I would not put this one on the ref at all. We were called, Beşiktaş was called offsides 11 times to their 2. And I personally saw 3 that were questionable. Not the goal. I wouldn't say the goal was one of them. But Pepe's goal, I should say. But, all in all, the reason those stats are relevant is because, quite honestly, they look a lot like the stats that we put up against Konyaspor, where the result was the exact opposite. And, in fact, Malmö was less efficient passing than Kayseri was. So one could hardly say that they completely outperformed us. The results just sort of tells another story. Losing 2-0 in Europe is never pretty. But it wasn't like the Fener match against Zagreb where they were just being pelted throughout the match and somehow survived with a somewhat modest loss. I mean, like you said...
4-1 is modest.
Well, I mean, relative to our Liverpool match, I guess, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It needs to be noted that we did not deserve to lose that match 2-0. I mean, deserve whatever, right? It's football. This is the football, right? But, we were in that match. We didn't play horribly. I see people lighting their houses on fire and disgust. People need to relax. I think at the end of the day, and the reason I wanted to bring up the Genk result in the beginning is that this is not at all. In fact, we've been underperforming for long enough in a way that we kind of need these little wake-up calls, and this is in a way one of the results where you can kind of sacrifice it with the hope that this becomes that a little bit, that because I'll say one thing, and maybe this is a good way to segue right into the sort of main segment we do, but my lowlight has to be Şenol Güneş, and I think for him this has to be a bit of a wake-up call where you can't be so slow to make subs.
How many times have we said that this season, though?
Yeah,
That's
right.
Not acceptable anymore. He's not gonna... I mean, it's like his alarm clock has been going off for 48 hours straight and he's still sleeping.
He's hitting that snooze button a little too much, That can
he's not even hitting it, he's just ignoring it. Sleeping through it.
And the reason I'm calling him out for my low light is that not only were his subs poorly timed and, not even sufficient. I didn't think his subs were very good or act appropriate for what we needed to be done on there. But also his starting lineup. His starting lineup was, I thought, on the one hand, it was not the style we've been sort of excelling at recently, in terms of with Atiba holding the ball. But if you're not going to play Atiba, fine, because he's old or whatever. We're playing two defensive-oriented players. One who's really getting his first start against the side, Malmö, who's fairly deep into their season now and kind of pulling it together. I don't know. I shouldn't overdo it. I want to give you some room to talk about Sinan Ogünesh's performance too. But yeah, I was not impressed. You get the low light, Sinan.
Well, let's start by saying the big mistake that I think we could have all identified a couple of weeks ago is not including Atiba Hutchinson on that UEFA list. Yeah, I'm not sure what they were thinking there. I mean, I guess maybe the idea as well, we don't want to overplay him, so we'll rest him in Europe. But it's clear that he is still a vital part of this team and still very much needed. The negativity that it shows that you start the match with two breakers in midfield is just so. Yeah,
you have Nejip with Medel, like two. Neither of them has the technique that you need to really break down the opposition in the middle of the field.
They're both the same types. They're both ankle biters, pit bulls. Call it what you will. They're the exact same types of footballers. Obviously one is far superior to the other in terms of overall quality. Yeah. But you're playing the two same exact players, two, pure defensive midfielders, combative defensive midfielders. You have Ozan, you have Tolgay. Tolgay, I think, started on the bench this weekend, so why not start him here tonight? Mm-hmm. I don't understand this Medel Nejip combination. I think he started with this exact midfield, well, bar Lige, but I think he started with both Medel and Nejip against Linz, and we all know how that turned out.
That's right. That's right. I forgot about that. Oh God, I blocked that one out. Exactly.
So yeah, this was just something that clearly he shouldn't have done. Not that that's the reason for the defeat, because honestly, it's very similar to Galatasaray yesterday, where you create plenty of chances.
Well, and I thought you would be more critical of the subs. Honestly, that's what I was waiting for.
Oh, I'm getting there. But it's very similar to Galatasaray yesterday, where although I think the difference is that Galatasaray actually played a good game yesterday and did not deserve to lose whatsoever. I think even a draw was harsh on them. They were clearly the better side against Porto, and then to lose 1-0, it's very painful. For us here today, I think that a draw is fair. But if you look at the game, because you mentioned the statistics and shots, total shots and shots on target, that's fine, but that kind of doesn't give a proper that's not a proper reflection of a game, in my opinion. What you have to look at is clear cut chances. Yeah, and honestly, I don't think Malmö created a single chance. Was Karius forced to make a single one-on-one save? I don't think so. Maybe he saved like a long shot.
You know what it was? It was tricklers. Yeah, the two shots on target that they have statistically were literally tricklers that kind of bounced to him that were no challenge at all.
And that's not dangerous. I mean, they literally created nothing in 95 minutes, and you lose 2-0. That's bizarre. And that's something that will happen maybe once a season. I mean, that's something that will happen almost never, because you're almost never going to be in a situation where you don't give away a single clear-cut opportunity to an opponent.
And again, right? Like it's in the Europa League group stage, right? It's not like a knockout performance, If anything, it's not. I think at this stage of the Super League, that would have been a far more damaging performance, honestly, For example, if it were this coming weekend against Konya. So, if you're going to get those kind of performances out of your system, because they are going to happen, like you say, this is, you don't want to put too much of a silver lining on this kind of a thing, but is this not kind of ideal?
It's been happening. No, it's been happening all season. These types of goals is what's been happening all season.
Yeah.
If you
No,
remember,
for sure.
both Linz's goals against us were goals that came falling out of the sky. The goal against Bursa came falling out of the sky. The goal against Fenerbahce, that was just something that came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And it's starting to become incredibly frustrating that we're conceding. We continue to concede these types of goals.
Yeah.
And I firmly believe the reason that we are conceding these types of goals is our own failure, ineptitude up front, our failure to convert. In many of those games, yes, we did, like against Fener and against Bursa, we were 1-0 up, but there needs to be, I think you're playing against opponents where you kind of have them on the ropes. I had no feeling today that Malmö was getting, well, there were some spells where they were a little bit better, but I never had the feeling that they were going to score.
No.
That they were going to bring us in true troubles.
No.
And
Our
I
defense
think
was actually fairly solid, ironically, in for most of the match, right? They didn't give me the sense that they were like lapsing or anything.
I don't know if it was our defense or it was just Malmö's lack of quality. But honestly, today I did not see a strong opponent. But that makes it only worse that you lose 2-0. I think losing to a team that, like, if you compare, I watched the highlights of Sarpsborg against Genk, and you can see with Sarpsborg that there's that conviction, that desire, that will. Even though they're playing a much stronger team, but you can see that there's like a very, very enthusiastic team there. I think what we had today in Malmö, the fans had that, but their team didn't. I didn't feel like their team really had that, except for the one player on the left, on their left-hand side, Stig or something. I forgot his name, but he was pretty good.
No, but in that vein, there was actually a moment in the first half where their crowd was really getting loud and chanting, and it was like, and the funny thing was, it actually almost seemed to wake our guys up, because I think Beşiktaş is used to playing in that sort of an environment to some extent.
It was a very fun atmosphere. I think these types of away games in Europe are great. The Malmö fans were fantastic today.
And credit to them for sure.
Except for one period where we were attacking and they were booing, but the booing wasn't like, when we at Vodafone Park, when our opponent have the ball, there's this whistling and booing, but that's like it has a certain monotone sound. But this was like, it felt like someone just got injured in the middle of the pitch, and the other team kept playing that type of booing, like really angry booing, not like booing to get your opponent. Yeah, but it was really weird because usually when that type of booing is to get your opponent out of their concentration, but there's no genuine anger behind it. But there was like a spell was going on. Like it felt like something was going on, and I didn't see anything happen. So it was really weird, and I'm glad that didn't continue, because that really gave the match a very eerie feeling for a moment there.
It's a Viking thing.
Maybe, but no, I think in general, the Malmö fans were amazing. I didn't think their team was. This was not a team that impressed me.
No.
But that only just makes it all the much more worse that you lose to this type of a team. As for the substitutions, which you alluded to already, I think that the players that came on were the right players, but the players that came off was wrong. I don't understand how you can, at a 1-0 scoreline, take off Adam Ljajic, the man who created everything you basically created in that match that came through Ljajic's passing
for the last 4 weeks.
Granted, he hadn't had those moments in the second half yet, but I think that also had to do with the rest of the team. Taking him off for Quaresma was bizarre. I think that the subs came too late as well. Wagner Love in the first half, he missed one or two really big chances, and then on top of that, he just kept losing the ball.
There was a phase too where, like, when we were really pressing, I remember there was a cross that came through, and they defended really poorly, and Ljajic was the only guy forward and putting a little pressure on them, and it felt like if we had a striker there, which, like, why wouldn't there be? Like, that's the attack. We're in their box, basically. Why would there not be a striker there? Somebody else could have benefited from that defender misplaying it, and I was just like, where is Wagner Love? No, what is Love? No, where is this guy? Like, and you can't have that when you're down a goal in the Europa League, and you're supposed to be like trying to impress so that you can forge a spot on this team. You know, like where was
it
his
was
inspiration
okay
there?
on the weekend against Konyaspor. I think that in home games where you're going to dominate and dominate possession, and I think we did really well against Konyaspor, like I said last time, in retaining the ball and all that. I think in those types of games he can still be useful, but in away games, and I kind of wanted to say it last week, but for some reason I didn't. So I wanted to say this last week.
Yeah. By hindsight, it's
but
2020.
But I really did want to say that I think that away from home he's just going to be very ineffective, and that just came true again today. And I just hope that on the weekend he doesn't start in Konya. I think right now the best option is Babel, starting Babel as a striker and play with Quaresma and Lens on the wings. Gökhan Töre today did not convince me that he is ready.
No, that's a theme. We've been right on most things, and that's another one of those things we've kind of been right on. That Töre is not, for all the bandwagon that's sort of been forming around playing Töre, I don't think he's earned it, quite frankly.
I think he needs to be eased back in, so he needs to get 15-20 minutes in the league games. That's how you ease him back in. You don't ease him back in by not playing him and then putting him on for 9 or whatever, or 70 minutes in Europe.
Match,
I think you need to ease him back in. It's kind of unfortunate for him that we're not playing in the Cup this year. Otherwise, those would be the games where he should be getting match rhythm, match fitness. But he needs to get 15-20 minutes in regular league games.
And so quickly, before I put you on the clock and get you to give me your low light specifically, I just want to say another comment about what we were just talking about. The logic of playing Necip, and having two defensive midfielders, and it's okay, you're playing a Swedish side, and like your stereotype of that is like, okay, we need physicality. That makes playing a guy like Wagner Love up front kind of counterintuitive, kind of if we're being frank. But then beyond that, the thing that sort of mystified me, and this you can't necessarily place on Şenol Güneş, but by playing two defensive midfielders like Medel and Necip, you expect that they would be in the middle of the field, asserting themselves defensively. And one of the most kind of crazy things about this match to me was seeing them both flaring wide in the way that Ozan and Tolgay do when they're paired together in the middle. Like that, you're there to play defense in the middle of the park. Like what? That was something that was sort of bizarre to me as well. Sorry, I've got an ambulance here. It sounds like.
Well, despite the fact that I don't agree with Necip starting, I did think he was good.
Yeah, no, he didn't stand out as a negative performer. That merits being said.
He showed a lot of grinta. He won a lot of balls. He did well enough, but it's one of those things where, when you have, if you rank it from a scale from 1 to 10 and you look at handle speed, I think you can look at an Adam Leitch is probably on the top of that. On our bracket, he'd be a 10. Mm-hmm. And then Necip is like a 2 or a 3. Like
yeah, and that's maybe even kind. But anyway, let's not bag on the guy unnecessarily today. So if my low light is Şenol Güneş, you can't take that one. So for you then, who's your low? I mean, that's a tough one, I know, because I think Şenol probably would be your go-to also. I'll let you go first on the highlight. It's a tough day for that too.
A highlight?
No, go low light. Give me your low light.
Okay, low light. Okay. Well, I guess Caner with that penalty, that was absurd. I don't even know why he's doing that. It's not like, even if he gets off a shot, there's Karius. Have a little faith in your goalkeeper.
Yeah.
There's no reason to leave that hand hanging or whatever he did to give away that penalty. And I think, I still feel like if he doesn't give away that penalty, I really don't think they're gonna score out of that position.
No way.
And I still think that we would have gotten an equalizer if it wouldn't have become 2-0.
Yeah. I think his angle would have been too tight for him to really get a very good shot on Karius, honestly.
Yeah, and the thing is, there can always something happen. But you have to have faith in your goalkeeper, and I think that Karius has proven that when it comes to one-on-one positions, he's extremely good.
For sure.
But I'm not going to be all piling up on him because of that deflection and that he wasn't good. He wasn't particularly good in this match, but it's not like he was.
It is his second poor performance in a row, because I think we called him out against.
Yeah, against Fenner, he wasn't too good either. But it wasn't that bad. But it was that penalty was terrible. I think that's just such a
careless, unnecessary,
brainless thing to do. It reminded me of Ramon Motta, who gave those types of penalties away against Liverpool, if you'll remember, at Anfield, and Balotelli scoring, and he did the same thing against Feyenoord in the Champions League qualifiers, the exact same position against both teams, were both absolutely idiotic penalties, and this ranks up there, I think. Maybe slightly less idiotic though, but it was dumb. And then, of course, Wagner Love, he was just poor.
Yeah.
I always used to call Marcio Nobre, I always used to call him a black hole.
Yeah. I remember that was a good one. We used to both call him that. Because the ball would disappear whenever it went up front.
He was a black hole up front, and that's exactly what Wagner Love is. Inability to keep the ball, to control it properly. Always seems to be jumping off his foot, and also the fact that he seems to go down so easily all the time, expecting to get falls, and he never does get them.
And his pace just isn't there, Like that was, I think, I didn't realize how much of his game relied on a bit of that sort of ability to get past someone, like maybe not his acceleration, but his speed at the end, and that's not.
It's
there.
really weird to see that a player who scored 23 goals in the Super League, I guess the season before last, he scored 23 goals. To see that he has declined so rapidly and is so over the hill. He is just so over the hill. He's. At this point, I have serious doubts if we would loan him out to an Anatolian team, if he would even be able to score more than 5 goals, even if he played all the games. I don't know. He just feels so over the hill. I don't know if it's just confidence, because I honestly think it's more than that. It just feels like he's just a step or two too slow all the time.
Maybe Emre Akbaba was way better than anyone knew, and like he's the only reason that he was just setting them up on a platter for Wagner. Anyway, but yeah, let's move on to something slightly more positive, and I'll let you go first this time. Who is your highlight? Is there anyone who you could say, like, at least that guy played well today?
Adam Ljajic.
Yeah, that's probably the go-to, right? Which made taking him off so illogical.
The guy is just oozes class, and he has that true special player type thing. The thing that Sergen had, the thing that Ahmed Hassan had, the thing that Panko even had, even though he was not on the level of those two, but Tumer had that too. Matias Delgado had it to a lesser extent. Guti, of course. His Ljajic is really, there's something really special there. It's just a shame that he doesn't have a striker in front of him that can do something with that brilliance. I feel like if we had a good striker, if even a Burak Yilmaz, if we would have gotten him on the deadline day, I think he would be feasting on those true balls.
I keep imagining him with Abubakar for some reason. I don't even think they're the best pairing necessarily, but at the same time, I feel like they could establish a little rapport with runs.
Just any striker that's capable of weighing on a defense, that's capable of finishing. It doesn't even have to be a Mario Gomez level striker. It can be a tier lower, like an Abubakar, who of course is a great player, or even a Burak Yilmaz, who I think we both don't want. But a guy like that would really, that would make Ljajic stand out so much more, because then he'd be getting those assists statistically. Because now today I think he gave 2 or 3 assists, and that gets wasted. He's just a great player, but unfortunately, That's
about he's just not getting the support he needs, And that's what I was saying last week. I was saying the one thing he's lacking is being on the same page as the rest of the attack. And I think you had assumed I had meant that in a sort of negative way towards him, that like he wasn't where they were. But no, I actually meant more in that, like, you know, everyone on the attack has to be on the same page of a book, literally. And he's playing on he's playing at a like further along in the plot, you know, like they need to catch up is what I was sort of really trying to say. And I think that's absolutely
like
right.
We had that with Lens and Laren at the beginning of the season. Remember when I said, you know, Laren got super lucky that was against Torshavn that he managed to score that goal, the back heel from Lens, because he had no idea what was going on, and he just got that extra second because he's playing against amateur or semi-professionals. Yeah. If that was against, you know, a professional team, the defender would have gotten a block off. Yeah. And I think that's just kind of what's still kind of going on here.
I almost really miss Negredo, you know? Like, even if we just held on to Negredo.
You can say what you want about Negredo in terms of his ability and decline, but in terms of the, you know, the how should I put this, like the
end result,
the cognitive quickness that he has, the footballing IQ. He has a high football IQ, so he would have paired well with Lige. Yeah. But we'll never know.
No, we won't.
But there's just one more thing I want to say, though, because you say, well, it's an advantage that we shouldn't be too worried because Genk lost in Salzburg. But I don't think that's necessarily an advantage, because now Genk are in a position where they're going to need to. Yeah. They can't afford to lose that next game, you know, at Vodafone. So they're gonna maybe.
Well, that's the benefit, is that we're gonna at least be at home for that one. So, but we'll see how that goes. Yeah. But so just to keep things moving, I have to pick a highlight, you know, and it's a tough one. It's not a good match to have to pick two, but I'll give it a go. You know, and what I'll do here is because if I'm gonna like put it all out there, I'm at odds with most of the Beşiktaş fan base regarding Necip Uysal. I'm not a fan. I think he's typically clodding, lacking technically to the point where it's like it drives you mad when you really need something there. Sure, he plays with a lot of heart, but he hasn't shown any capacity to improve significantly after all of these years. And that's something that shows something deeper than what's on the pitch. That shows his heart, his desire, not just to put it all on the pitch on a match day, but to do the work off of the match to improve himself. So, off of the pitch rather, to improve himself. So, with that said, so like I saw the starting lineup today and I thought, oh, Necip is in the starting lineup. Like, this is not going to be pretty. And surely it wasn't. But I don't think you could say that's because of Necip. And so in honor of the fact that he was not terrible, I'll give him a shout out, you know, because he definitely exceeded my expectations personally. And he was not even bad today, you know. He didn't, of course he was poor technically in all the ways you'd expect. But had a lot of clodding touches towards the end that were like, oh, come on, like we need to do something right now. But at the end of the day, everyone was doing that. So, you know, here's a shout out to you, Necip. You were not terrible today. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, and the thing, even because somebody pointed it out in the group as well, in our WhatsApp group, that well, you know, he I don't remember who it was, but he pointed out, well, you know, we start with Medel and Necip against Lask and see how that turned out. And I think I said something like, yeah, but now we have Lige there, and I think it's gonna be okay. And honestly, it was, because Lige created those chances,
and they created no chances again.
Yeah, they didn't.
It's so annoying.
It is just such a weird. You know, this is going to go down in the history books as a 2-0, and that feels like you know, just simply got out. You know, you faced a better team. But that wasn't the case. I find it so difficult to accept a defeat. I'm a sore loser when it comes to
these types.
Losing.
Unmerited losses.
You know, when with Fenerbahce against Dinamo Zagreb, I'm sure that hurt to lose 4-1 to a team that, you know, you have a much bigger budget and on paper you have much more quality than that. Of course, that's painful, but at least you can take solace in the fact that you got schooled. They were so much better. They could have scored 3-4 more goals,
If anything,
and you know that wouldn't have even been an exaggeration. It could have been 7 or 8-1, and it would have been just, you know. And then you can say, okay, you know what? This wasn't our match. We weren't good. They were much better than we were. They deserved it. And I just find that so difficult to do when you have a match like this where your opponent literally created nothing and you lose 2-0 and you yourself created like 4 100% chances. And yesterday, you know, Galatasaray, they had that in the sense that they had 6 100% opportunities, but at least their opponent had like 3 as well.
And showed some danger.
Even though like 2 of those came at the very end when it was already 1-0, so that's on the counter, so that's a little bit different. But you know, at least their opponents had opportunities and could have scored on different opportunities. But here it's just like they don't create anything. Their opener is literally something that comes because your defender deflects it and it falls in at an, you know, you can have a shot that gets deflected in front of goal and you know, and it bumps in, but it's still a shot at goal. This was a cross that was going nowhere probably.
That was a total fluke. Those goals are total fluke. And let's talk about that. I mean, briefly before we even do that, while we're still in the sort of highlight section of the match, I do want to. On a more serious note than the Necip one, I will say that Domagoj Vida has been really solid. He's been really solid for quite a few matches in a row now, and I'm very glad to say that he seems to have settled in. He made an exceptional tackle at one point, and just throughout the game was putting it all out there, and he was great.
Even that one point where they almost got a chance, he did so well at hindering his opponent that he couldn't get a proper header off, which made it an easy catch ball for Karius. And that could have been a goal, because if he didn't put that pressure on that Malmö player and didn't hinder him, then he could have gotten a clear header at a goal. And then that's a clear-cut chance then. But he did really well to prevent that. And that's something we've been missing, I think, previously. So, and I think him and Pepe are slowly starting to get more accustomed, and they're
becoming the tandem.
That's starting to work out.
They're becoming the tandem that we were touting at the beginning of the season.
But we need to stop conceding these flukes. Yeah. Because I've said it, we've conceded. I mean, you can't count it on one hand anymore how many fluke goals we've conceded this season. That's not normal.
It's getting ridiculous.
You know, and you know, the reason, in my opinion, for that is just because I think that's because of our ineptitude up front. Absolutely. Because we're not. If you're leading this game and you've killed it off.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, you leave open the possibility, and that's sometimes all some guys need. That's what motivates is possibility, right?
It's like I said. It's like I said last time. You know, the ball only has to fall right one time, and this one literally fell perfectly for them in a very comical way, almost.
Not to go too Star Wars, but man, hope can spark a rebellion, right? That's all. If you just give someone the opportunity for hope, that's sometimes all you need. Yeah. Put them away. Gosh. And like, why are we playing with Wagner Love still in 2018? Okay, enough. Let's put it away. So quickly, before we turn the page on this fully, I want to make an impassioned defense of Loris Karius today, because I see him getting bagged on the internet. And look, he swung at it and he missed. Fine, it happens. But like, A, these things happen to everyone. B, it was a very awkward situation where it deflected, came in at a very odd angle. I would even assume that Karius probably, I don't think he thought it was coming in at the angle that, like, because it came in at a very crazy angle and it was a bizarre goal. So yes, he like swung and missed, but that happens. And I think he sort of half swung at it, assuming it was already kind of over, because it was like over, whatever. I don't want to dwell on it. it was just a fluke.
Yeah, but the media are loving to
what they do.
to blame him as soon as something happens. Like the Bursa, the goal that Bursa scored, that was immediately like, that was immediately Karius' fault. No,
Yeah,
fucking
they've got to
not.
tear this guy down.
You know,
right?
and
they've
this
already
one,
started the narrative.
This one, I mean, this one at first I thought, yeah, okay, that's his fault. It's on him because it's a cross that waves in. But it wasn't, because it took a deflection, so that takes a different. Okay, you know what? He's in that corner, but it's too late. He's already taken that step out to go and collect it. It's so difficult, man. I mean, that's
it's football. That's football. It happens.
How often in the season? How often in the season does that happen?
Exactly.
You know?
And that's it, right? Like, that's my sort of overall sentiment. These things happen. These results happen. These flukes occur, as you said, very, very, very rarely. And you have to just say, like, this is the scenario. This is when it happened for us this year, right? It happened, and it happened in a time where we're not losing points in the league, at a time where we could really be, stacking them up and making that sort of run to first that we need to make. Which we're on that trajectory still. Hopefully we'll sort of see that through against Konya. But we did it. We sort of flopped. They scored twice on 0 chances. Like hopefully we got that out of our system.
Oh, I hope to God. But it becomes difficult to say that with a straight face when it's happened so often already. But I mean, this was literally no chances. And against against Lask, those goals come falling out of the sky, but they still have to score them. Against Bursa, that kind of comes falling out of nowhere, but they still have to score it. But this was literally, this was just I'm lost for words at that goal, and then the penalty.
I think all you can do is just like wash out your mouth, rinse it out, and just spit it out. That's it.
At some point I was thinking to myself, like, the only way that we're going to concede a goal here tonight is if they get a penalty. That's the only way they're going to score.
And they did. To their credit, they got one.
That was like in the first half. It's like, there's no way, these guys, there's no way they're going to score a goal unless they get some stupid penalty. Which they, and then that goal, that first goal is like, okay, what's that,
Exactly. It's like the equivalent of a penalty. And then they get the penalty too.
You know what the thing is, like, if you have a proper forward up front, then you have that feeling of, you know what, okay, fine, 1-0,
we'll get them back.
no big deal.
Exactly.
We'll equalize and we'll get a winner even.
Exactly.
But when you have that black hole up front, that just sucks everything in it, like an actual black hole in space, then there's like, oh shit, it's 1-0. I'll be happy if we get an equalizer. That's
exactly.
Even in a match like this where you're clearly, your opponents are clearly so inferior, yeah. And that sounds arrogant.
No.
That's really not what I want to say, because honestly, I felt that Sarpsborg showed more quality and caused us a lot more problems up front than Malmö did today. Sarpsborg's, that Rashid Mohammed guy, he caused us a lot more problems than any of the Malmö players did today. But
credit to Malmö's crowd, to their fan base. They certainly brought. They brought their A game today.
For sure.
And you know what? Let's flush this one down the toilet. It happened. We're done. Quickly, let's just very briefly talk about the upcoming match. We're playing against Konya in Konya. It's going to be 1:30 p.m. here, so that's going to be 7:30 for you, Kaan. 8:30 Istanbul, I think. It's fairly late, again, on a Sunday night.
I'm not sure if the clock is changing at some point.
I don't we're in that weird phase now. Some people do the daylight savings and some don't. That's always a really awkward time for my
seriously considering of just removing it here in Europe, but they want to make sure that everyone does the same thing, that that we're all on the same clock. So that's probably going to be something for 2020 or something.
Yeah, who knows? But until 2020, we're gonna deal with that, and hopefully this is not the week where we're not gonna misinform you. And if we do, this is a good segue. Follow us on Twitter, and we'll definitely inform you of other.
Or just Google is your friend, man.
That's right. Yeah, why would you be relying on us to find out when the match is? But if you do, it should be on at 8:30 in Istanbul.
Yeah.
1:30 for those of you gringos on the East Coast. But so Kaan, what do you have to say about Konya? Do you have anything to say?
You know what? I mean, they have really given us a lot of trouble in recent years. I don't remember when we last won there. It's been a while. They continue to keep us to draws. It's one of those games that I think next to Bursa away has been a little bit of a tough game for us. They also seem to have grown some sort of hostility towards us in least recent years, because I think that Super Cup final where their fans decided it was cool to stop the match 100 times by throwing stuff on the pitch and all that stuff, and then they got a 5-match ban, and I guess they resent us for their own behavior. But it's tough. It's a tough away game. Konya aren't in a poor form right now. They're doing actually quite well. I was very surprised. Well, surprised. They always seem to lose to Fenerbahce at home for some reason, so I guess I shouldn't have been surprised, but they lost 1-0 at home to a very poor Fenerbahce.
Yeah, that's right.
So
actually, Konya just recently beat Fener, didn't they?
No, they lost 1-0 at home 2 weeks ago. So I think
they beat someone recently, I thought.
Yeah, I think they might have won again this weekend, I'm not sure, but no, I think they didn't actually, because I think they're on 12 points or something. But
they're not doing particularly well in the standings. That should be noted. They're in 8th place.
Yeah,
so they're sort of right in the middle there.
Yeah, don't they have like 12 points or something?
11 points on a +2 goal differential. So they're not. Good. Yeah, they're right in the middle there. And they're poised to make that jump. Maybe I think they'd probably like to get back into Europe. They've been there in recent years to some extent,
Yeah, they did decent last year. I thought. I think they got like 7 points in the group stages. They finished last, I think, or third maybe, but I think they did commendably.
So yeah, I'll run down some of the recent results just to keep people posted on them. They lost in Izmir against Göztepe last week.
Right.
They won in the cup, whatever. The result that I was thinking of was they beat Kayseri on the road 2-0, which is probably a fairly good result for them. They've drawn Bursa, they've drawn Galatasaray, right?
No, they haven't played them yet.
Was that last season? That was probably at the end of last year they drew them.
But they've been on last season they were fighting relegation. I think that was last season, or was it the season before? It was last season, I think. Yeah, last season, I think. But this season they're looking a lot better. Rizak Çalınbay has got them on track. I think losing away to Göztepe, that's no shame.
No way, yeah.
That's a
good fan base.
Difficult away game. Then losing at home against Fenerbahce they were unlucky. They missed a lot of opportunities in that game. So back-to-back losses for them. But they had a really good start to the season in the opening 4 or 5 games. So they're definitely going to give us a run for our money. And Rizak Çalınbay seems to always want to do something
over on us
against us, despite that he's a Beşiktaş legend, quote unquote.
And it should be said that they're 11 points, right? We only have 14, so if they beat us, they're level on points with us. And
they're only 4
we're in a bit of trouble
from first place, so that's not
right.
too bad.
Exactly.
But I don't know, I mean, after this defeat today, I do feel a little bit more, actually, oddly enough, I feel a little bit more confident that we're going to come away with a win there. Whereas before, I was kind of like, this is going to be tough and we're probably going to drop some points. But now I don't know what it is, but I feel like...
You're feeling better somehow?
I feel a little bit better about it. I don't know why. Maybe the players are going to have this feeling of, we have to do something now. Plus, our away form hasn't been great. The players are going to have to step up. But what I was actually thinking about... that when I first looked at the schedule, the calendar, I felt like, they did it again. they gave us Galatasaray away in week 32 or whatever it is, just like last season, which I think that's kind of unfair to do that back-to-back season. No, I think, you can give him that advantage, but not 2 years in a row, because that's an advantage, having that derby match in one of the last couple of weeks at home. That's a big advantage you're giving to teams that are probably going to be fighting it out for the title.
And that's when you're at peak form as well. So you're at peak form with the crowd on your back.
Yeah, I feel like that's giving a team an advantage, and if you do that 2 years in a row, that doesn't seem fair. However, on the other hand, we've played away at Bursa. We've played away at Fenerbahce already. We're now playing away at Konya. We're gonna play away after that against Göztepe. So that's 4 of the most difficult away games that we've already played then in the first half of the season. There's just Galatasaray away and Trabzonspor and Başakşehir left. There's just 3 really tough away games left. I'm not sure if we're playing Başakşehir away in the first round of the season. I'm not sure if we're playing Trabzon away in the first half of the season. But Bursa, Konya, Göztepe, and Fenerbahce, of course, those are really tough away games where, you're kind of checking those on your calendar. You're like, that's probably gonna be a draw or maybe even a loss. You're probably gonna lose one of those games.
And just by the way, fact check on you, November 3rd we're away to Başakşehir.
Okay, so then we basically just have quote unquote only Galatasaray and Trabzonspor away in the second half of the season.
That's big.
I guess Ankaragücü could be, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see how that's going to turn out. But
if they're playing for nothing, maybe not, right?
Yeah, but it's going to be hostile because of their relationship with Bursaspor, and all those gentlemen will be coming over to help support them.
That's annoying.
Anyway, whatever. But I do think that's if we can come through. Now we have back-to-back away games, which I don't really understand why we have back-to-back away games. Konya and Göztepe, 2 really tough away games back-to-back. That feels also kind of, that kind of feels like, it doesn't feel fair, Don't we have back-to-back?
Oh my God, we're back-to-back. So we have Konya this week, and then we have the break, international break, and then we're away to Göztepe, which is
that's what I'm saying.
We're getting them all out of the way.
So those are 2 really tough away games, which is tough. But on the other hand, if you come through that with 4 or even 6 points, that would be absolutely massive.
We're clinging right now. We're clinging up there. So
especially if you do it, given the situation where you don't have a striker and all that, if you can come away from those 2 games with 4 or 6 points, that will be absolutely massive. But of course, you can also be left with none.
Well, I want to go on the record as knocking on wood, and let's hope we get those results. Jeez.
Well, it's going to be crucial. This is
our test.
These 2 games are going to be a big test. But if we come through those with a decent amount of points, which is more than 2, then that's a great. That would be a great move that would be great for the rest of the season, because you can start maybe on a winning streak from there, and we have an advantage going into the second half of the season where, we might not be in Europe anymore, or we may still be, but it's going to be a far less crowded schedule. We won't be in the Turkish Cup. And if we were still in Europe, this will only be a couple of games probably, because we don't have the groups, you're not in the group stages anymore. So your schedule is far less crowded. So, and then we're going to come into a second half of the season where we're going to have all these tough away games. Those away opponents, we're going to have them at home where we have to beat them. So in that case, I'm going to stand by it. I think if we get 35 to 37 points in this first half of the season, I think we're going to be good. In the second half of the season, because
this also predicates on the notion that we're going to get a striker in the transfer window, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
that would make the difference. And I think if we can get a dependable striker in the window, I think we'll be good. Well, I think we'll be very good.
That'd be massive, yeah. Because honestly, I mean, at this point, it doesn't really matter anymore. I think what Fenerbahce do, they have to do something inhumane to still come back from what they're currently going through, and they still haven't sacked Koku, so they have a difficult game, I think.
Inhuman, for sure.
Superhuman.
Superhuman.
They play Beşiktaş this weekend. So let's hope they keep each other to a draw.
Yeah, that'd be the best. That'd be the best result.
I don't think we want to have Fenerbahce going on a winning streak just yet. I mean, they can do that second half of the season because it won't matter anymore. But let them straggle a little bit more behind. Beşiktaş, to me, they haven't convinced me this season. They're still a very capable and quality side. They're definitely going to cost us points again because that's just Channel is just bad against Avcı. But I don't think Beşiktaş have got what it takes this season to win the title because I don't know, they don't have that same fire that they had before. Adebayor, who was very important for them last season, especially the season before that when he came in the winter, he was great for them, and he's just looked so lackluster.
Yeah. Well, and certainly my hot take on this is that I guarantee that if we don't get a good result against Beşiktaş here in early November, in a month from now, all of the boo birds and the negative Nancys are going to kind of collectively be talking about how Avcı beat Şenol, and I'm sure they'll be clamoring for Avcı to be our coach.
Oh, no, thank you.
But I'm not a fan of that idea, and I hope we get a good result and kind of quiet those types personally. But anyway, let's not dwindle. Sorry?
No, I have all the respect in the world for what he has achieved there, but he has zero pressure to do anything there, and I don't think he has it in him to perform under pressure. I honestly don't think if he goes to Galatasaray, to Fenerbahce, or to Beşiktaş that he will win a title. I don't think so. I don't think he has it in him.
With the national side would back you up.
Yeah, that's a long time ago.
It is, yeah, maybe not fair.
And he's evolved as a coach, but I still don't. The only thing he's done as a coach for almost like 90% of his coaching career has been coaching Istanbul Başakşehir or Istanbul Büyükşehir Belediye before that. And there's zero fan pressure there. So he has never learned how to cope with that as a manager. I don't think that you can go into a top club then and expect it to do well, regardless of how well you've performed at Beşiktaş. I really don't think he can do that. I think that's something that people are really, that's an aspect of coaching that they're really underestimating when they're talking about Avcı, and when people are, I know a lot of Beşiktaş fans are like, I really hope he's gonna be our next coach, and honestly, no, I really don't.
I hope Guti will be honest. I hope that Guti's being raised for the position.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so too.
Or Mansiz if he's not interested. But whatever.
But then, I mean, if we look at Galatasaray too, they've looked poor away from home, especially against Porto yesterday. They were actually quite impressive away from home for the first time this season, but they've looked poor away from home. I think they're playing Antalya away this weekend. Right. Now Antalya has been kind of hit and miss with them this season, but they have
the capacity.
Yeah, and Galatasaray used a lot of energy against Porto yesterday. I wouldn't put it past them to drop points in Antalya. At the same time, of course, if they win there, it wouldn't be a massive surprise. But I think Galatasaray are gonna drop more and more points after their European outings. So for us it's just so important for us to win away at Konya, to win away at Göztepe. That's also going to put tremendous pressure on our rivals.
Or like you said, 4 points. 4 points, we can survive.
4 points, fine. But if you can get 6, then you're just putting so much pressure on the rivals.
I would actually venture a guess that if we get 6 points in these next 2 matches, we could probably find ourselves on top of the table by the end of these 2 weeks. I like that.
Can almost guarantee
that these guys will slip points, because clearly Beşiktaş here will probably drop points this week, and if not, then Fenerbahce, we can just basically put the nail in the coffin.
If we take 6 points in the next 2 games, I'm 99% sure we'll be number 1 in the table. But it doesn't really matter
yet at this stage.
But yeah.
Anyway, Kaan, take us out.
Yeah, so we have an after the beep again for you people today. We didn't have one the last 2 episodes, so that's really a case, guys. You have to send them in. Go to our Twitter account. Our WhatsApp phone number is on there in our bio, in our info. Send us your voice messages on WhatsApp, please. These after the beep segments, I think it's something that everyone enjoys. They're a fun concept, but we need to have people sending stuff in. So it's kind of difficult when we have these European previews. It's kind of difficult, but on match days, when we're going to be recording. If you're at the stadium, or even if you're not at the stadium and you just want to, share your thoughts on the game, send us a 90 seconds, 120 seconds, and if you have some serious thoughts, you can go longer, but 90 to 120 seconds of a voice message on WhatsApp, and we'll include it in our After the Beep. Today we have one from Mustafa Abdulahmet from Sweden. It's one of our guys in our WhatsApp group as well, and he was actually at the Malmö game, so a big props to Mustafa. We'll have his Twitter handle and all that stuff in the description. Of course, our Twitter handles from Sinan and myself, the podcast's Twitter handle, and Beşiktaş International's Twitter handle. You can find all that in the description of the podcast on your iPhones or whatever, Samsungs. Give us a follow on social media, of course. Interact with us on social media. Is there stuff that you would like us to cover? Are there special episodes that you would like to hear about? Are there, because we've been thinking about different stuff we could maybe do.
Is there something you want to contribute, even, right?
Yeah, for sure. And just like if you'd like a certain point in history where we do an episode on a certain point in history, like let's say the centenary season, the 2002-2003 season, if you'd like an episode just on that season or something like that, let us know and we can do stuff like that. But definitely hit us up for After the Beep. Once again, you can find our WhatsApp phone number in the information on our Eagles podcast Twitter handle. So yeah, that's pretty much it for me for today. I hope you're going to have a great weekend, everyone, and hopefully we'll head into the international break with all 3 points. So that'll do it for me, Kaan Bayazit. Sinan, take us out.
And before I do the trademark thing, I want to add, even if you just have like a goal reaction, if you're in a group and you react positively a goal and you record that, anything for the After the Beep could be welcome, because that would be fun too. And then beyond that, I'm sick, so if that carries through, I apologize for any of that. I'll be better soon, I promise. And of course, go Beşiktaş! Let's hope we get 3 points this weekend.
Yeah, I really hope so. We need that. This defeat, I think I'm quite zen about it, despite the fact that I'm annoyed at how it happened. But I'm not going to go to bed and, gnaw at myself.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think I'm going to lose any sleep over this, but
I don't even think it was our worst. People think it was our worst performance, and I was the one who was guilty of that.
I didn't think it was. I think it was
So I'm leaving the game, and yeah, I don't know what to say. This was the worst game I've ever seen in my life. I shouldn't swear maybe, but I couldn't stand, so I left before the game. The only positive thing about today, it was a lot of Turks here, and the first half we had a good atmosphere on our side. But the game was shit, and now we have to go home disappointed with maybe the worst game in our season. I can't really speak right now because I'm so angry, but I hope we will at least get off the group. And yeah, that's it for me. I can't speak, man.
Beşiktaş International hopes you enjoyed this program.